Imagine a scenario where you build the most powerful engine in the world. You spend hundreds of millions of dollars, you hire the brightest minds, you construct a state-of-the-art facility, and you achieve a level of mechanical dominance that is objectively, mathematically verified. And yet, despite creating the most powerful combustion unit on the grid, you find yourself staring at a trophy case that hasn't grown all season. That is not a hypothetical. That is the strange, almost paradoxical reality facing one of the most successful teams in the history of motorsport. We're talking about a situation where the numbers say you are the best, but the scoreboard says you are not. It is a high-stakes engineering puzzle that has just been confirmed by the sport's governing body, and it threatens to reshape the competitive landscape of Formula One for the next 2 years. According to the latest findings released by the FIA, the governing body of Formula One, Red Bull has once again been officially recognized as possessing the most powerful internal combustion engine on the grid. This is not speculation from a pundit or a leaked rumor from a factory floor. This is a cold, hard, data-driven classification that has been issued after an exhaustive analysis of the first 12 races of the season. The statement from the FIA was unusually definitive. They confirmed that while Honda, Ferrari, and Audi all sit more than 4% behind the benchmark, Mercedes sits within the 2 to 4% window. That classification places Red Bull at the very top of the pyramid, completely alone. For most teams, hearing that you have the most powerful engine would be a cause for celebration. But for Red Bull, it is quite possibly the worst news they could have received. To understand why being number one is actually a disadvantage here, you have to understand the bizarre new world of engine development regulations. This is the first year of a massive overhaul in the hybrid era. The sport has introduced a system that sounds more like a handicap race than a traditional engineering competition. It's called the Aduo program, which stands for Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. The concept was simple on paper. Create a system that allows teams who screwed up the new engine formula to catch up, rather than suffering for years like they did in the mid-2010s. If you are slow, you get to spend more money and more time fixing your engine. If you are fast, you're essentially frozen. The logic is that the FIA wants closer racing. They don't want one manufacturer to nail the combusting formula in year one and run away with the championship for half a decade. They want parity. But this creates a perverse incentive that is now hitting Red Bull square in the face, because Red Bull built an absolute monster of a combustion engine, likely the best 1-liter V6 turbo hybrid core we've seen in this new regulation set. They're being penalized for their success. The penalty is time. The FIA has now decided for the second time this year that Red Bull is not allowed to touch their engine. They cannot bring performance upgrades to the combustion side of the power unit. They have to stand still while everyone else gets to run. This is an incredibly complex situation because the power unit in a modern Formula One car is not just one thing, it's a split personality. On one side, you have the internal combustion engine, the pistons, the combustion chamber, the turbocharger, the traditional stuff. On the other side, you have the electrical system, the battery, the MGU-K, the MGU-H. In the current regulations, the electrical side accounts for nearly 50% of the total output. The Aduo program, however, only looks at the first part. It only measures the thermal efficiency of the petrol engine. It completely ignores the batteries and the electric motors. This is the loophole that is driving Red Bull crazy. They know that while their gasoline engine might be the most powerful, their overall package is lacking. The car is likely suffering on the energy recovery side. The battery deployment might not be as sophisticated as what Mercedes has brought to the track. But because the FIA's ruler only measures the combustion side, Red Bull is locked out of development on the only part of the car where they're actually winning. They're stuck. They're a giant frozen in place, watching their rivals creep up behind them. The question that hangs over the paddock is not just about horsepower, it's about the politics and the engineering philosophy behind this new rule. And look, the stakes are incredibly high. This isn't just about one bad season. The implications of this ruling stretch far beyond the current championship. Because of the way the Aduo windows work, the teams that are behind now get 2 extra upgrades in 2026 and 2 in 2027. Red Bull gets 0. That's a 2-year freeze on the single most powerful engine in the sport. It's a strategic nightmare. It means that while Christian Horner and the engineering team at Milton Keynes might be popping champagne corks about being number one in the FIA's datasheets, they're also staring down the barrel of a very difficult future. They're going to have to win races, if they can win races, with one hand tied behind their back from an engineering perspective. We need to look at the specific language used by Nicholas Tombasi, the director of single-seaters. He didn't just release a number. He went out of his way to state that the analysis was thorough and exhaustive. He mentioned the quality of the data and the robustness of the findings. This is significant because, according to reports, Red Bull has been vocally unhappy about this process behind closed doors. There's been a lot of grumbling in the paddock about whether the FIA sensors are accurate, whether the data is being normalized correctly for different fuel loads, and whether comparing a Red Bull engine running in a Red Bull chassis to a Honda engine in an Aston Martin chassis is even a fair fight. The FIA is pushing back hard against that narrative. They are saying, effectively, we checked the math twice and the math says Red Bull is the best, so they get nothing. But here is the twist that keeps the engineers up at night. You see, the official wording is that Mercedes is in the 2 to 4% window. That sounds like a small number, right? 2 to 4%. In a sport where championships are decided by thousandths of a second, a 2 to 4% deficit in the pure thermal efficiency of an engine is a catastrophic chasm. It is a canyon. And yet, Mercedes has won 8 of the 12 races so far this season. 8! If the engine is that far behind the Red Bull unit, how are they dominating the Grand Prix weekends? The answer lies in the invisible parts. It lies in the electrical deployment. It suggests that Mercedes has built an energy recovery system that is so vastly superior, so incredibly efficient at harvesting power under braking and deploying it on the straights, that it more than makes up for a massive deficit in the petrol engine. That brings us to the central conflict of this entire news story. Red Bull has the best heart, but Mercedes has the best nervous system. Red Bull has the brawn, the raw, unadulterated power, but Mercedes has the brain. And under the current rules, the team with the best brain is being given permission to build a better heart, while the team with the best heart is being told to sit down and be quiet. It is a fascinating dichotomy. It suggests that the FIA's attempt to level the playing field might actually be widening the gap in a way they didn't anticipate. They are equalizing the combustion playing field, but they are doing nothing about the electrical side, which is where the current dominance is actually coming from. This leaves us with a massive question. If the FIA isn't actually measuring the part of the car that makes Mercedes fast, what is the point of the rule? We're about to dive into the history and the tension that led us to this bizarre moment in the sport. To really grasp the weight of this situation, you have to rewind a few years to understand the massive gamble Red Bull took to get to this point. For most of the turbo hybrid era, Red Bull was a customer team. They didn't build their own engines, they bought them from Honda. And to be fair, that Honda partnership was incredibly successful. It won them championships. But when the announcement came that Formula One was moving to a brand new set of engine regulations focused on sustainability, 100% sustainable fuels, and a nearly 50-50 split between combustion and electrical power, Red Bull decided to go it alone. They decided to stop being a customer and become a manufacturer. This was a monumental risk. Building a Formula One engine from scratch is arguably the hardest engineering challenge in the automotive world. You're dealing with tolerances measured in microns, combustion pressures that are off the charts, and a thermal efficiency that exceeds what most power plants achieve. The common wisdom in the paddock was that a Red Bull would struggle. New manufacturers often need years, sometimes decades, to catch up to the established giants like Ferrari and Mercedes. When the season started, many analysts predicted that Red Bull Powertrains would be the weak link. They expected reliability failures, they expected a power deficit, and they expected Max Verstappen and his teammate to be fighting for points rather than podiums. So when the first FIA analysis came out 3 months ago and showed Red Bull at the top of the combustion charts, it sent shockwaves through the paddock. It was a massive "I told you so" to the doubters who said they couldn't do it. It proved that the immense investment in the state-of-the-art facility in Milton Keynes had paid off. They hadn't just built an engine, they'd built a rocket ship. The problem is that this rocket ship is attached to a car that, according to the championship standings, is sitting 6th. Max Verstappen, a driver who is widely considered to be one of the greatest talents in the history of the sport, is 6th in the driver standings after 12 races. That is a shocking statistic for someone who has dominated the sport in recent years. So where is the disconnect? How do you have the most powerful engine and still lose? It comes down to the chassis and the electrical systems we touched on earlier. But there's another layer to this story, the politics of the paddock. The Aduo system was negotiated by all the teams, including Red Bull. They signed the contract, they agreed to the rules. But according to sources in the paddock, they did so expecting that the system would measure the total performance of the power unit, not just the combustion engine. Now that the reality of the regulation is clear, that it ignores the battery and the MGUK, there's a sense of frustration, maybe even betrayal inside the Red Bull camp. It's alleged that Red Bull has been lobbying the FIA to change the way the Aduo is calculated. They want the FIA to factor in the electrical deployment. They want the governing body to look at the lap times and realize that their engine advantage is being neutralized by a deficiency elsewhere. However, the FIA's hands are tied by the original wording of the regulations. Changing the rules mid-season would require unanimous agreement from all the teams. And why would Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, or Audi agree to a change that would help Red Bull? Wouldn't. In Formula One, you race on the track, but you win championships in the boardroom. Right now, Red Bull is losing the boardroom battle. This is where the human element comes into play. Imagine being the engineer at Red Bull Powertrains. You have designed the combustion chamber that is the envy of the world. You have achieved the highest thermal efficiency on the grid. You have done exactly what your boss asked you to do. And your reward is to be told that you are not allowed to do any more work for 2 years. It is a demoralizing prospect. It feels like being punished for being a straight-A student. It creates an environment where mediocrity is rewarded. If you are Audi and you are 4% behind, you have a clear path forward. You have 2 extra upgrade tokens. You have motivation. But if you are at the top, the only way to go is down. We also have to consider the psychological impact on Max Verstappen. He is a driver who lives for winning. He doesn't care about the political nuances of the engine development windows. He just wants a car that can fight at the front. According to reports, the mood in the Red Bull garage has been tense. They are not used to being also-rans. They are used to dictating the pace. To see Mercedes taking victory after victory while they struggle with tire degradation and straight-line speed deficits, despite having a superior engine, is incredibly frustrating. It puts the spotlight on the aero department. If the engine is the best, and you are still slow, the problem must be the car's bodywork or suspension. It creates internal friction. Let's talk about the competition for a second. The report from the FIA paints a very interesting picture of the current pecking order. Honda, Ferrari, and Audi are all categorized as being above 4% behind. That is a massive deficit. It means that the transition to the new regulations has been brutal for the established Italian giants Ferrari. It means that Honda, despite their years of experience with Red Bull, has struggled to adapt to the new fuel regulations. It means that Audi, the newcomers, are right in the mix of being slow. The fact that they are all grouped together in that bottom tier is actually good news for them. They all get 2 extra upgrades. They can take risks. They can throw radical new designs at the wall because they have nothing to lose. Mercedes, sitting in that middle window, gets 1 upgrade. They're close enough to Red Bull to smell the blood in the water, and now they have a weapon to attack with. This creates a strategic dilemma for the FIA. Are they actually making the racing better, or are they just creating a chaotic arms race where the best car wins anyway? Looking at the current season, Mercedes has won 8 races. Red Bull has won 0. If the goal of the Aduo system was to slow down the dominant team, it has arguably failed spectacularly. It has slowed down the team with the best engine, but it hasn't stopped the team with the best overall car. The system seems to be based on a flawed premise, that engine power is the sole driver of success. It ignores aerodynamics, tire management, driver skill, and strategy. It is a very narrow, isolated view of performance. And yet, the FIA insists they are confident in their process. They talk about the quality of the data. They talk about confidentiality. This is a key point. The teams are not allowed to see each other's data. They cannot verify if the FIA made a mistake. They just have to take the FIA's word for it. This lack of transparency is a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. Could it be that Red Bull's engine is actually too powerful and the FIA is using the Aduo system as a political tool to rein them in? Or could it be that the FIA sensors are simply flawed and Red Bull is actually not the best? We will likely never know the truth until years from now when the engineers write their memoirs. But for now, the uncertainty is driving the narrative. The next 6 races will be critical. The Aduo process is repeated every 6 races. We just got the update after the Dutch Grand Prix. That means the next update will come later in the season, likely around the time of the flyaway races in the Americas or Asia. Between now and then, Mercedes will be developing their 1 upgrade. Ferrari, Honda, and Audi will be developing their 2. Red Bull will be watching. They will be analyzing. They will be trying to find performance in other areas. Weight savings, brake ducts, floor design, anything that doesn't involve touching the engine. It is a race against time. If the other teams deploy their upgrades and suddenly start closing the gap in horsepower, Red Bull could find themselves falling even further down the order. They are the sitting ducks. They have the crown, but the crown is heavy, and it is preventing them from running away. The next part of this story takes us into the technical weeds of why this is happening and what it means for the future of Formula One. Let's go deeper into the engineering rabbit hole here, because the distinction between the engine and the system is the key to unlocking this whole mystery. When the FIA says Red Bull has the most powerful engine, they're talking about the V6 internal combustion unit. This is the part of the car that burns the new 100% sustainable fuel. The efficiency of this burn, how much of the chemical energy in the fuel is converted into mechanical force pushing the piston down, is called thermal efficiency. Formula One engines are the most efficient engines on the planet. They run at over 50% thermal efficiency, which is double what your road car achieves. Red Bull has apparently pushed this further than anyone else. They are extracting more mechanical energy from a single drop of fuel than Mercedes, Ferrari, or Honda. That is a testament to the engineering team at Red Bull Powertrains. They were the underdogs. They were the new kids on the block, and they beat the establishment at their own game. But here's the problem. That mechanical energy doesn't just go straight to the wheels. It goes into a complex hybrid system. In the new regulations, the electrical power is generated by the MGU-K, which recovers energy under braking, and historically by the MGU-H, which recovers energy from the exhaust gases, though the MGU-H has been removed in the latest specs to simplify the engines and attract new manufacturers. The electrical energy is stored in a battery pack and deployed through an electric motor.